because I know Mike's out sick, so.
What's that?
Mike is out sick today.
Oh, okay. God, there is
So,
something nasty going around.
Mhm.
I almost
I
cried
don't
when
want it.
Mom called me the other day, and I could barely make out what she was trying to say to me. It's scary.
I know we have a couple on our end that aren't attending either, so.
Okay. All right. Well, we start in 2 more minutes officially, so we'll see if anybody else is going to join. I have some Christmas music playing in the background. I don't know if you can hear it.
Now we can hear it.
You can hear it? And Scraldy, the Charlie Brown Christmas. Sue, nice to see you back.
Yeah, I came back to the cold. 10 days in Aruba. Now I'm freezing.
I forgot. How was your trip?
It was good. We had a great time.
Nice, nice. You could have brought the warm weather back. That would have been nice of you.
I tried. It was not customs wouldn't let me. Yeah, it was nice and warm. It was nice being on the beach, being in the pool, sitting at the pool bar. Now I'm here with my computer. The dream is done.
But you have to leave to go back. You left, now you got to go back.
Yeah.
Not for a while, but
next year. Every year.
nice.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started since we're recording. With Andrea not being here, we'll save that the hands-on exercise that we were going to do with one of those libraries. We'll wait until we could do that next week because we have that one open, kind of ask me anything. But let me share my desktop.
Yeah, I'm going to turn my camera off.
Okay. So we are going to talk about lists today. So they are similar to libraries that we were looking at on Tuesday, except this is all text forward. So we don't care there. I mean, there is an option to have attachments on a list item, but this is collecting, capturing, reporting all of that data without it being file forward like the libraries. So we are already at session 5. Can't believe it. These sessions have gone so fast. For those of you who were on Tuesday's call, I had started talking about, like the out of the box rules and approvals, and they had made some updates to the interface. And then, of course, as soon as we all hung up and stopped recording, I pushed another button. I'm like, oh, look, there it is. So we're going to start with that. And then we are going to go through lists. So there's probably some options here where if you have Excel files, but if you need any type of like reminders around it, you need people to like get not yelled at, but like say like, hey, there's a date coming up, kind of like we talked about in the libraries. Like we have a review date coming up, and here's who's the owner. Let's send off some automation. Typically with lists, we can look to update some Excel files. Not all. Excel does amazing heavy lifting, and a lot of times I do use lists and Excel together to solve different parts of a same issue. So first of all, let's look at the approvals from last week. So we had this NIST was a folder in the main library because we wanted to add metadata to it. I created a new library, named it NIST. I went into my NIST folder, selected everything, and did a move to. And so it moved it to this library. What I didn't say last week when I used the move to feature, which just for the sake of showing it again, you can select one, you can select all. Here's the move to. One of the things that's it seems a little weird, because if I go and look at my recycle bin, all of these documents are going to be in there. And so what happened was, even though I clicked move, what SharePoint did was it made a copy of all of this and it put it in my new spot, and then it deleted it at the source. So it feels a little weird when you do it and then you go look in your recycle bin, you're like, what? I didn't mean to delete all those files. That was the move feature happening. We added some conditional formatting in here where we used is less than or equal to today turns red, less than, before the end of the month is yellow. And then I added the out of the box approval column here. What I didn't do before we hung up, so let's say I'm ready for this to be submitted. I click on this not submitted. I could change the name of this if it's going to make it more intuitive to whoever I'm sending this to. And they've upgraded this since the last time we've done it. So I could say that the first approval, I'll just put it on me, but I could then add, like Diego or somebody else in here. And then add details and submit. So the catch here is still, these are our only customization options if we want to take the easy route here. And there's if this works for you, you can do this. What I can't do is then go open this up in Power Automate and say, well, you know what, I really like for the subject line to say this, and I would really like the from account to be something different, and I need more information in the body of the email. If it turns out you need more, then that requires the full-blown Power Automate workflow. And I still owe you, I'm going to do a short video with some instructions on how to rebuild alerts for the site pages library, since they're getting rid of our out-of-the-box alerts. I haven't done it yet because, just for fun, the site pages library is not something that's easily discovered through the Power Automate tool, but it can be done. I've done it before. I just need a little time to get it together for you. So let's see if this sent me an email. Because with this new system, I don't know if it's going to send it via Teams or email or both. That's all service alerts. Let's look at my Teams. Remove my sharing ribbon. Oh, here we go. So this is what it looks like. This is what was in that title. This was what was in the description. Here's the attachment. And then I can cancel this. I can reassign it. I can reject it. I can approve it. Either way. We'll pretend that I actually looked at it. Hit approve, and then it would go on to Diego. So if you just need this really quick, like, you can't just keep sending these emails all around. We never know exactly what phase we're in when it comes to getting things approved. You could do that. This automatically went to requested. And so what it's not showing, and let's see if there's an option. I'm going to look at show hide columns. Let's look at approvers and let's expose a couple more columns here. Okay, so this is nice. So now it actually shows right here that this is sitting with Diego. So not bad for an out-of-the-box approval. I just wanted to wrap that up since I felt like I left it a little undone on Tuesday. So let's look at lists. This is going to be an easier start since we already looked at the libraries. We've already talked about metadata columns. Really common use cases would be asset tracking, expense reports, service tickets, calendars, rosters of different things. Some folks even use it for project management because you can get so you can add as many columns as you need, where sometimes the tools that are made for us for project management, we can't necessarily add like, well, I want to put in there like who our project manager is, but I also want to put in who our, maybe you have a backup PM, and maybe there is, you need to put in a few different, like if you're doing agile, maybe you need to put in a few of those different roles. If you use lists, you can add fields to collect all the information that you would like. There is some limitation on how many columns. I think once you get to about 100 fields of data, SharePoint will start to get a little weird. But that would be a lot of information to be putting into one list anyway. So I'm going to abandon the PowerPoint. And one of the things to keep in mind, there's lots of different entry points into lists. What is the most intuitive is to create the list where you want it to live. So I'm on this site. This is where I would like my list to live. I'm on the home page. I'll click new and I'll click list. Actually, let's start with a list form first, because sometimes this gives a more intuitive creation experience for folks. So we're going to do a new list form. We are going to call this, I was going to call it a time off request. And now I am building this form as I go. So this is time off requests, description, words go here. And then maybe I don't want this to say title. Maybe I could say, why? Doesn't matter. Or if you just want to, there's lots of reasons. You can remove the title field. You can change it to something else. It's going to be a single line of text, which is 255 characters. Actually, you can fit quite a bit in there. I'm going to add another field, and it's going to be date, and I'll have it be start date. You might want it to have time as well. So maybe if somebody's going to take a half day, you would want to know time. And this is a required field. And then we'll add another field here for end date. Include time, it's required. And then let's do a choice field. And I'll just do PT or time off type. And we could do paid time off, personal, and let's just do like a jury. Could obviously have more choices in there than that. And right here, as they're being built, if you wanted to use different colors, you can do that right here in the flow of creating it. And we're just going to pretend this is perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. You'll see over here, every list, when you create it by default, has the capacity to have attachments. So if you wanted to expose the attachment field there for some reason, you're looking for a doctor's note or something like that, you could expose it if you wanted to. And if I did want attachments, I probably wouldn't leave it sitting there, so I can grab it from here and pull it down. Or I can grab it from, so over here I get little arrows. Then I can move things around this way. And I could add a logo. We're going to skip that for now. And then I have some other, there's a few baked in themes, but you can create your own style. It's a very, very light editor, but you can at least get it somewhat close to your color scheme. And then if you want to be notified when new responses come in, maybe you're not ready to accept responses for this. Maybe you're queuing this up and then it's going to be something that you send out next week. You could set up start and end dates for it. You could customize this. And then if you are closing the form at some point, you can adjust what that message is. And you can always click preview. And this is what it looks like. So it'll actually say, because it knows who I am as a logged in user, and it says, hi, Kelly E. When you submit this form, the owner will see your name and email address. And if I want to send the form, I can copy the link that easily. On the back end, here is it didn't change, so this was truly a title field, where on the form I changed it to Y, but on the back end, it's like, I know this is my title field. And the start date and the end date. And here is my form. So very quick way to create a form that's really easy for people to use. I will say this type of form that I just created is only for people inside of your company. So only Vitamin Shop folks can fill that out. There is a separate app called Forms that you may or may not be aware of. And the interface looks really, really similar. And I believe in one of the sessions, I might be making this up, but we actually built a form on the fly in a page. But I might be getting my things messed up. But creating a new form from here, unless IT has shut it down, this is where you could send things out outside of your company and get responses from your customers, your partners, something like that. So just a quick call out on that type of form. That is not where I want to be. So that's one way to get to a list. The only thing that kind of stunk about that is that maybe I wanted to use one of the list templates, and when I start with a form, I'm building everything from scratch. And it was easy enough, but let's look at creating a new list. And yeah, let's use, sorry, I'm stumbling over my words, one of their templates here. I'm going to use the content scheduler with an approval workflow. So when you click on any of the templates, you get an idea of what this looks like. So we have a title, a description, who created it, the published status, the approval status, when the draft is due by, when to publish it, what type of content it is. After it's been published, people can add in a link, and if there's images to be used, if there's files to be used. And this is just the starting point. Once we use this template, we can change whatever we want without changing the template that it came from. And I'm going to make this list name a little shorter here and just call it Content Scheduler. And it says that this is the workflow it's going to set up for me. A publishing date reminder 3 days before the draft due date or the published date, the Power Automate flow will send a reminder to the author. So I'll just go ahead and get that going. And what's happening, it's doing some work on the back end, and I'm going to get an email when this workflow is ready for me to use. But in the meantime, I can make some changes here. So it created all these columns for us. It didn't bring in their demo content, which is nice because then you don't have to delete it. I'm going to hit add new item. And so there is a form, even though I didn't start with creating a form. This is technically a form. It's not pretty, but it works. But if I want to make this look nicer, I have the option of going up here and clicking on forms, creating a new form, and it dumped all of my fields into here, which I can then, if I want to change the title of it to make it more, sometimes on the back end, when we create the list, we want our field names to be short, sweet, succinct. And so you can save, if you need to add more context or maybe change the verbiage a little bit for your end users, you can do that on the form without changing how the list was actually built. And of course, we can change the order over here and all of that, but for each of these, we can set whether or not it's required and add all this context. We can take a preview of it. I guess I should give it a name. That is probably my email that my workflow is ready. And all that good stuff. So it's really easy to get a form that's just a little easier on the eyes out in front of people. What I love about this as well, so this is the content scheduler. Let's say I want to see content type, content image. So this is where they would be initially putting in, like, this would be our dumping ground. Hey, I have an idea. This would be great for a newsletter. This would be great for a webinar, all this other stuff. And so to begin with, they're not going to have a published link because we haven't published it yet. Nothing's been approved. And so I could remove this. I'd also remove published status. That's going to default to not published if we're going to check and make sure. But if I'm coming in here to drop in an idea, I shouldn't be having to say what the published status is or give you a published link. And I might not even have a published by or draft due by. It depends on who's doing the triaging of these. But all that to say that I can make this be a very, very straightforward form for people to go drop in ideas. And then I can come back and create a new form. And this is going to be for content submission reviews. And here's where I could put in a completely different set of fields and share this link with a different set of folks so that they can come in and work with this and start to put in some due dates and things like that. So I like that it's really easy to create the different forms because we've all either at some point had to make do with making one of these types of forms or dealing with them where it says like, nothing past this line for you, admin use only. With this, you can just create a completely different form that all of it, all the data still goes into this table, but you don't have, you can just create a different form that they're only seeing what they need to. And again, if it's just internal stuff and you all know how to use a list, you don't even need to worry about putting on a form overlay. You can just start typing and everything is going to go in here as its own row. So what I would like is my published status to default to planned. I shouldn't have to pick that. So we're going to do that. And then we'll pretend I know when this draft is due by. And I am putting in an idea for a help article. What I don't see here is newsletter and webinar. So we're going to add some options to that. Maybe I have an image. Let's see if I can find something silly and quickly. I don't even know what that is. That looks like it might be pretty. I don't know what that is. And let's just hit save. So every time somebody puts something in, it's just another row in your table or list, however you want to look at it. But now that we've interacted with the template, we know what's here. We know we want to change a couple of things. So I'm going to go to publish status, click the little drop down arrow, and go to column settings and edit. And I am going to have the default value be planned. If they're just putting it in, we're going to assume it's planned. They can always overwrite it, but it's just a faster way to get to the end if this meets 80% of our use cases. Then what I want to do is I want to add a few more content types. So I'll click the drop down, column settings and edit, and I am going to add a newsletter and a webinar. And just like when we were looking at the libraries, one, I can change the colors of these if there's a certain color scheme that's going to help it stand out to me. We could also add conditional formatting. And since I have an image in here, there's another view that you can create called a gallery view. And I like these, like especially if you have, let's say you have some employee resource group, you have a training cohort, something where you might have a roster of folks and you want them to be able to personalize it. You don't want it to just be, here's my work profile, but you want to give maybe folks a chance to put in some personal things about themselves or whatever it is. Once you're used that, for that, you might use a headshot. As soon as you get an image in there, you can create an image first way to look at all of your content. So we were working with another customer and they, for their elections, we fill out their, all the volunteers. We have a roster and it has their headshots on there. So then it makes it really easy for the election judges to just look and go, okay, recognize that face. And this is the polling station that you should be at, all of that good stuff. And you can control what is shown here as well. It's just really easy to create different views just a different way to kind of slice and dice the way that it looks. And I will need to add some more rows for this one to be anything, but this is going to look like a Kanban board, Kanban, how you say it. And I don't have very many columns to pick by right now, so that's kind of boring. But this would be a different way to look through it. And so like right now this is planned, and then I could move it over to, and from here, you can literally drag it between, and now the published status is assigned. I can pull it over here to draft needs approval, and it's literally changing the data in this list entry for me as I'm moving them around through this board view. So lots of stuff that we can do there. I'm going to pause and take a breath, take a sip. Thoughts, questions so far?
No questions for me.
Okay. Are you seeing thinking of any ideas yet of what this could do?
Yeah, not necessarily in my world, but I think definitely there's nobody from retail ops on, but I think it could be helpful for them, for sure.
Okay. And then just a quick perusal of the other list templates that are here. They can be a nice way just to kind of get a sense of what's possible. Some of these feel like they're more personal, but I mean, it is the time of year we do give gifts to, people at work as well. But here's travel requests with a workflow that's already built for you. I could also import from Excel, and this makes it really nice because as I'm importing from Excel, I can choose, I'm going to upload a file from this one. So this has, I think, 6 or 7 columns in it. And it has one table in there, and that is the table I want to bring in. And so above each, what would be a column in my Excel file, it's taking a guess at what column type I want this to be. So for task, I'll let that be title. For date, we definitely need that to be a date and time. Hours, number, account, single line of text. I could make this choice, but it never does exactly what I want it to. It's a choice column, but it doesn't actually go in and go, okay, in your choice column, I need to add camera company and consulting B and consulting X as choices. You have to go do that yourself later. A single line of text. So not every type of column has a direct correlation when I'm importing. So a lot of times, like billable, this is a yes, no, which is why I'm getting 1s and 0s. And so I'm just going to leave it as is for now because I can correct it once I get it in there. But this is over 1,300 lines or rows of data that I am going to get out of Excel and put it into a list because then I can do a whole lot more with it. So it's 100% complete. Where is it? I don't see it. Am I blind? I feel like I just got pranked. Not sure. Just gonna do this one more time really quickly. Change that to a date and time and leave all the rest of that the same. And I'll put a 2 after this just in case it was still creating somewhere and I just wasn't patient enough, which happens a lot. I'm just not even gonna touch it. I'm gonna go over here to my email really quick. And so here is the email telling me that for the content scheduler, it created the workflow for me. So it says that the workflow was set up for this list, which is nice. And since it was that, when you create them that way, it's actually sitting in Power Automate if I wanted to make some tweaks to it. Okay, I'm not quite sure. That seems to keep timing out. So we are going to move on. Believe me, it does work, but I think the demo gods might be messing with me right now. So you can import from Excel and CSV. The Excel, your data needs to be in a table for it to work. You can also start, so here's another way to start from that form, because it's an easy way to build out, the fields that you want to collect. You could start with a gallery view, start with a calendar view, start with a board view. Regardless of which one of these views you start with, as you're adding your fields, it all goes and creates a list the same way. And even if I start with a board view, I can still go create another view that's calendar view. So it's the same data, but rather than like being grouped by status, I want a calendar where, it has a start date and an end date in a calendar view. Okay. So let's look at, sorry, I needed to go refresh my memory really quick. I'm going to go to our content scheduler here. And we can do things. So we have the rules. So like we were looking at in the library, I can create a rule. So when an item is modified, I can either always, which this feels like overkill. It really depends on how much data you have in there and how important it is. I would probably not pick always. I would say if. So let's say if published status changes to anything. So if I just want to know if published status changes at all, send me one. Or I'm going to say is assigned. I can either send an email or I can set a different value in the thing. So maybe I have another column where I'm like, okay, well, once this happens, we need to write something to this column, or we need to update a different column to be a different value. I'm going to keep this at send an email to. And then here are all of my options. I could just type in an email address right here, or I could take one of these wins. Whoever created it, whoever the approvers are, the approval creator, whoever modified it last, or me. And then if I wanted to add custom text, I could. So again, if we're using rules like this is where the email notification is what it is. We don't have access to how it was built, where it was built, to change the importance of the email, the sender, the subject line, the body of it, besides just those fields that it just showed us. And then it has some other ones. Here's as a date is approaching. So I could say 10 days before publish date, send something to somebody. If you ever need to turn them off, you can go to manage rules here, as I can turn them off if I don't want them on, because maybe I'm not ready. I want to have them queued up, but I don't want them turned on quite yet. I want to run it by the team and see what's going to make sense for everybody else. And then there are these quick steps in here. And so you can do things like draft an email, start a Teams chat. The only thing I'm not crazy about these is that they're hiding. Send an email. So I'm going to say draft an email. Just put this in. So the quick step name is going to be draft an email to Kelly. Do we want to CC anybody? Sure, let's CC the approvers. The subject line, definitely want to include a link to this item. And then do we always want to show this quick step, or do we want to show it only if? So let's say I only want to show it if published status is not published. So as long as it's not, if it's published, what are we sending emails about for this line item? Doesn't matter. So if it's not published, I don't want it to be shown. I love the idea of these. What I'm not super crazy about is the clarity of how to run my quick step. One, how do I even know there's a quick step enabled here? And how do I know how to get to it? So a lot of people, it's not their first intuition to like click 3 dots or come up and click another 3 dots, or here we go. Hiding under automate is my quick step. So this could work if you're working with, you know, a smaller group of folks and everybody has been trained. Once you get that communication out there, then it's easy. But most of us are not going to stumble upon it, and it's probably going to take us 3 or 4 tries of doing this, depending on how long that break is since the last time we did it, or if, you know, the SharePoint team decides to move something to the left side instead of the right again. So just calling that out. There are some good things. I'm hopeful that they will make it easier to find, because there's really good stuff in here. There's things in here that would be really, really helpful. They just need to make it a little more transparent that it's there. And then again, under automate, we have the configure approvals. So be the exact same experience that we had on the library. Right. So let me see, I think that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. So as Copilot becomes more advanced, it is starting to, there are ways for Copilot to start to read things that are in our lists. It's also starting to care what our metadata is, especially when we think about Tuesday's session where we're on libraries. All that information about those files is only going to boost the odds that when you're talking to Copilot and saying, hey, I need everything about, you know, the SOPs for this category, you know, with upcoming renewal dates or something like that, it's starting to look not just at the contents, the words anymore, but also the metadata that's associated with things. And then you think about all the different views that I could create. So if I had a bunch of stuff in here, let's see, I think I might show you, I have, this is mine. This is not very fleshed out yet, but I was starting to go a little crazy trying to figure out, keep track of all of the things that I wanted to push out. So I'm working on a newsletter right now, so that's kind of where my head has been at. But I could come in here and say, okay, this one's going to be a blog post, and this one's going to be social media. I need a success story. I'll clean this up later. We'll say all of this is newsletter. I'll exit. And so now I can do things like very easily filter by, it's going to go for a newsletter. And now I have just my newsletters. I mean, you can see my all items has this little asterisk. So I could go save view as, and I could have this be newsletters. And that way I don't have to filter next time newsletters as its own view. And then I can come over here and go back to my all items and see everything. Grouped by content status, this is a view that came with the list itself in the template. I can keep it, I can delete it if this isn't helpful for me, which it probably won't be because I'm the only one that's going to be in this particular view, but I could delete this. I can also do things like, you see, like as I was making these columns wider or narrower, and that will stick. So I can refresh this, I can come back a week later, and that will stay. So I don't have things that are cut off. I can drag and drop these to a different place, and you can see the view is automatically saved. Maybe I want to get this published by date over here. So it's really flexible in how you want your items to show up. There is also the opportunity, sorry, I feel like I'm using that, that's my little safety thing that I keep going back to my deck. There's also a concept of using lists as lookups for other lists. So let's say you have a list of stores. You don't want to have to, like, okay, if I wanted to assign a store to this, because maybe we were doing signage or something like that, I don't want to do a choice column and type in the name of every store, because then if I have a different library, I have another list somewhere else, you don't want everybody to maintain their own laundry list of stores. People might misspell, they might abbreviate in different ways, they might not put them in alphabetical order. There's all kinds of things that could just be a little wonky about it. So you could create a store list. I'm going to do this really quickly. I'm going to start with just the blank slate here. I'm going to use title for the store name, and then I am going to put in a location column. And pull in the address, city, state. Sure. So now I'm going to add a new item, and we're going to say this is the Pioneer Square store. And this is located at 207 First Avenue South. There we go. I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to add one more here. We'll say, I don't even know, Pike Place Market. And I don't know the address of that one, so I'm just going to put in Pike Place. Oh, it's not going to do it for me today. Oh, there it is. Just needed a little more patience, maybe. Is it going to pull it in? Nope, it's not. That's okay. If I would have started typing an actual address, it would have given it to me. So now I could just have this whole table. I could have a column here for phone number. Maybe I have an hours. Maybe I have the store manager's name, all of that good stuff. But if we're scheduling content, maybe we're scheduling content by different stores. And I'm going to add a column here. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to choose lookup and next. And this is my store. And so it held on to type as lookup. And because I don't have that many lists on this site, it accurately guessed it's stores. And I'm only going to bring in the title. But you can see if I also wanted to pull in more information, so let's just say I want to pull in the city as well when I pull in the store. And I'm going to edit this one in grid view to get to this fast. And we're going to put this one at the Pioneer Square. I'm going to exit grid view. And it brought in Seattle. So you can have different sets of data. And so again, like if we went back to the example I was talking about, we help them with their elections, they have like their volunteer roster. And so I have a whole roster of all the information about them that we need. And then when we go and we create the calendar, we put in, you know, there's a volunteer field and we pick the person, and then what comes in with them is like their phone number, so that we can, you know, from right there, rather than having to go out and look for the other list and look up their phone number, it can just pull it in dynamically with it because it's in the source list that we're pulling from. So that can be a really nice time saver. And also, you know, there's only so many columns of data that you really want in one list. So it's a nice way to kind of use different sources to create the entire picture. And then same thing, we talked about the recycle bin. I'm going to delete this is the title. I have 3 months essentially to go, oh man, I really need that back. And so if I'm a member or an owner, I can do this. That's a settings cog, site contents, top right corner, recycle bin, and there is my list item, and I can restore it. Also, did it go up here yet? Also, version history is on as well. So we can look here, and so here it is. So version 1 this is what it looked like. Version 2, can't really see what the change was. Version 3, added an image. Version 4, we changed the status to assigned. This is as I was dragging it through the board view, because then it went to approval, back to planned, and then I added the store. And for any of these, I can restore it back to a previous moment in time. So the safeguards here are really nice. The other thing, once you create these lists, you have this standalone list app. And so everybody, when they open up the list app, it's going to look different, because these are the lists that I have access to, regardless of what site they sit on. So even though it was most intuitive for me to create my list on the site, technically I could create a new list from here. The catch is that it is really, really easy to accidentally create it in my lists. I hate that it defaults to this, because it's kind of like, oh, well, this is sitting in your OneDrive. It's your list. It makes managing permissions really, really difficult. So I could get it out to the correct site from here. And, give it a name. And now I'll be working on this list right here from my list app, but it's going out to that SharePoint site that I was just working on. And you can see down here in my taskbar, you can also install it as a desktop app. And so I don't even, a lot of times I don't want to have to go to the browser and click on the app launcher and look for lists. And so I just have my list app right here in my taskbar, because then I can work on all my lists across all of my sites. And it just makes it so much easier. The other thing that I want to call out is that you can create a list from an existing list. This is really cool. So if somebody went and they built out all the columns that you would want, or even 80%, let's just go with the 80% rule. If it's really close to something that you want, then you can, over here on the left, obviously this is my dev tenant, so I pretty much have access to everything. But let's go to, I'm going to want something from the Vitamin Shop demo. And I am going to copy my time off request. We'll pretend that this was just amazing. And I'll keep it in my list for now so that I'm not creating another time off request over in the Vitamin Shop. And I'll hit create. And all it's doing is it's bringing over the structure. So I had a title column. I had a start date column. I had an end date column. If I had a bunch of specific views created, those would have come over as well. Essentially almost everything except for the content itself. So you're not copying over content. That would be a security risk all the way around. But you have the setup now. Let's see if it brought over our form. Yep, it brought over the form. I didn't do a whole lot of work on it, but it is here. So it came over with it when I asked for it to create it from an existing list. This can be really nice for a couple of reasons. One, sometimes you just create the list in the wrong place. Sometimes there's a reorg and you need, you're like, oh, I shouldn't have created it there. I need to create it in a different spot. You need to get it out of my lists and into the actual site that is there. Or they just really created somebody created a great list and you want to steal the structure. If you needed to move all of the content from one place to another and your company is not doing a full-blown migration, for all of your list items, you have an option to, let's see if this has anything in there, to export to Excel. And that way, all of the data that's in this view, so you want to think about, okay, does my all items view, is it exposing every piece of data that I want it to? If not, I can choose any one of these drop downs and go to show hide columns and see if there's any other columns here that would have data that I would want to make sure gets exported to my Excel file. And then you have all of the data. It's a really nice way to archive things that don't need to live anymore. It's also a nice way, since we can create new lists based on Excel, then we can just go to wherever we need that list to be and create a new list based on an Excel file. It's not the most perfect way to do it, but it does do the trick. And then you can also, when you do the export to Excel, you can keep this as a dynamic. I don't think this is my, I don't know if it's going to let me do it, because this account isn't a daily driver on this device. Okay, it's not going to let me do it. So in real life, I have a list, and it's all of our time entries. So it's, what did you do? What day did you do it? How long did it take? What account? What project? A description. And I have that all goes into a list. And just one time I did the export to Excel. And now every time I open up that Excel file, I just go to the data tab and hit refresh, and it pulls in everything that my team has submitted for the last week. And that's what I use to, I'm like, okay, here's where, how many hours we have, how many hours we have to have in the project. I can use it to build status reports because they've put in the work they've done, so I can copy and paste it. So I basically have, in my export to Excel, one tab is all of the raw data from this list that gets added to every day, every week. And then I've added more tabs around it to do my pivot tables. So I have one, and everything in there is just sliced and diced to Vitamin Shop, and I can update it every week. So it's really, really handy, because then in there I can put in my charts and all of that, but still have a very concise way of collecting the data from folks. And then if you get really fancy, there's even a way to, if you wanted this to be a mobile app, there is a way to add, it's called Power Apps. And essentially you could create like a multi-screen mobile application for your employees. So I can actually go in, because I have the Power Apps app on my phone. I can submit my time on my phone. I have another list that's for expense reports. We added a Power App layer on top of it, and that's how we submit our expense reports. They're not much to look at, but they don't have to be, they work. This one I like, even my logo is working on this one. But this is essentially what it looks like on our mobile devices. Put in the task, put in the date, put in the account. Depending on what account they choose, a project field may or may not show up. Is it billable? Add work notes and hit submit. They can be so much prettier, and you can also have multiple data sources in there. You can guide them to, thank you. Do you want to, enter another time entry, contact, blah, 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 if you have questions. It's a really nice way to expand beyond these forms that we have here, or just the out-of-the-box list form here. And you could, if you wanted to, just do a really quick form overlay on it. So this would be if I just have one data source and it's going to be this, it actually spins up an app for me pretty quickly. Unless they changed it since the last time I clicked on it, which has been a couple of weeks. All right, we have 3 minutes left. Questions, concerns, hopes, dreams. So right out of the gate, it did a pretty, it's ugly, but it works and it has all the buttons on it. But just to give you an idea, we could add more screens. It gave us a browse screen to look through all of the entries that are there, the details, and an entry screen. So that would be adventures for another day. But lists as a data source, you can take it a lot of different directions.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, Yes, you are welcome.
I joined a
So-
little late. I'm gonna have to watch the beginning of the recording.
Okay, very good. All right, so next Tuesday is the, it's a green field right now. So hopefully Andrea's here and we can work through that real use case of moving one of her folders and getting metadata in there in a new library. But please bring your questions. I'll have some content just in case everybody's like, oh, I'll have some stuff queued up so that we can, there's so much around SharePoint that I can share. So, but don't be shy if you want to send over any notes ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to catch up and watch the previous ones. I only got through one.
Okay.
So I will try and get there for Tuesday so I can ask questions that
Okay.
are worthwhile instead of stupid questions.
Super.
Susan, I hope you had a nice vacation.
I did. I got my tan.
I'm jealous. All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.